Hello. Welcome to the very first episode of the Way to Change podcast. On this episode, I had a dear friend by the name of Sophie Paulding Kopecky. She is a healer. She's a herbalist, a mother, a life coach. She's working and has worked with various women and men, aiding them on their journeys. So in this episode, we really go into detail about her work and also how it compares to other therapies. We also touch on her background and what led her to her work. And we touch on various perspectives on healing work and on trauma release and on the path, on the journey. So Sophie will definitely be back on the show. We realized as the episode went on that there are various rabbit holes that we could have gone down. She's a woman of many talents, and I really recommend reaching out to her if you're in need of any kind of support in this realm. You can check out her work on her website, on Facebook, Instagram. I'll link all of this in the show notes below. And she also offers, a weekly newsletter, a weekly free group call, and also a free first session so that you can kind of feel into whether the process that she uses can be of aid to you in your healing journey. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, well, welcome. So do you want to start by giving a bit of a background on you and on kind of what led you to this path of healing and the work that you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, thank you, Emma. I'm really happy to be here with you. So my journey really began as my parents are from like a Buddhist sort of background, and so I grew up with I guess a sort of quite an open mindset. So that's like my background. Then I lost my father to lung cancer when I was 11, and that was all dealt with in a really quite a spiritual way, pretty conscious. But then I moved out of my home in my teens, and you sort of get on with things, you get on with life. Like you can't we can't do much about the things that happen along our paths. Yeah. But then I got to like my shit really started to like hit the fan around age 25, like after I had my first child. I was in the relationship with her dad was very difficult, quite a lot of emotional abuse, and but from both sides. Like, so later on I've realized that all of my relationships and all of the difficulties that I had in relationship, which is what led me to this work, really, in quest for my own peace. I realized since that all of those had two sides. I mean, we know relationships have two sides to them, right? But I think a lot of the time I see a lot of people being very much like I just saw a meme a moment ago, like saying the reason why most of us are in therapy is because somebody else doesn't want to go to therapy, right? And so my answer to that is and you see many responses to that. This is so true, and like my response to that is like, that it might feel true to us, but like see that as a blessing. Thank them. Thank those people for leading you to this amazing opportunity that you have to heal and to grow and to like become even more at peace than you ever would have been without it. So, and I see that perspective can be triggering for some people. So getting back to my story and what led me here, I was encouraged to do counselling from that time. So from the time when I was really struggling because the grief that I was holding was not, although I knew that it was, I had all of this theory, this happened, my dad died, and I feel, and I had other stuff from my childhood as well, like we all do. We all have, patterns and things that happen to us, and just the ways that we've been conditioned in school and parents and, all of this. So there was all of that stuff coming up in the mix, and I was reacting, like, so I would be very aggressive in my close relationships. I would be I would get very angry with my mum if she she was just trying to help most of the time. And I would get very angry with her, and like each time we saw each other it would sort of explode. And I would do a lot of like throwing myself on the floor and hitting my head against the wall and smacking things and like throwing things and being like intensely angry. And at the same time I had these difficult relationships. So from some perspectives it was like, oh, you're in a, it's him, it's the other person, it's so you should go to therapy and get help. So I saw like many counselors. I can't count how many counselors I saw. Many. Obviously not. Was this in Spain? For long times. It started in the UK. Yeah, it started in England. I saw two or three counselors while I was still in England. And then when Lexi was nearly 3, so I would have been just about a year after I started to seek help. That's when I moved back here to Spain. And then I started to see a psychotherapist, and I went to see this psychotherapist for nearly 4 years, every week.
Wow.
Oh, and in the meantime, I had been on Vipassana meditation retreats, following in my parents' footsteps a little bit, and being intrigued about what that was about, and always on this wanting to heal, wanting to like free myself of the pain that like, and through the psychotherapy, of course I learned a lot, but so I was aware that I had this like heavy black like plate on my chest. We did some somatic work and like finding out what I was feeling and what was going on. I was aware that I had very low self-worth, that I was that I was reactive, that I was stuck, that I didn't, that many things. And then like, but basically nothing much was changing. So I would do a retreat. I would go to I did a few ayahuasca ceremonies as well, and the meditation. And so I would do these things, or I would go to a festival, even, how heart opening a festival can be. And like, I'd be like, yeah, like things are getting better. I'm healing. And then I would just it would come to the crunch again. I would be back in a conversation with my mom, or I would be back in a difficult moment in my relationship, or I would be with one of my, I only had one child at the time. I would be with my child, and she would be being, a child, and I would react and be like, and just feel this uncontrollable emotion, so uncontrollable anger, uncontrollable like, and then of course after the anger comes the self, the reflection, no? So like the hatred, like the intense, like the confirmation of
the
my
regret
limit,
or guilt.
and the confirmation of my limiting beliefs, right? So the confirmation of you're bad, the confirmation of you're not good enough. And I'm sure that anyone that's listening can relate to this, because I think we all have these limiting beliefs that are born out of our, well, whatever it is, our childhood, our personality, and our experiences. So so there I was, all of this stuff kept coming up, and I just, I got to the point that I know that many of the people that I speak to are at, where they're like, well, I've done all these things, and like I've tried to feel my emotions, and I've tried to, seek help, and I've seen a therapist for years, and I was like, okay, this is just me then, like. And you do get, there's we say, oh, you're not broken and all of this, but you do get to the point where you feel like, well, I feel like I'm broken,
what's the solution?
And then all of the emotion comes still, no, or like more sadness and more self-pity, and so that was so then I just stopped. I got together with my second child's father. He was very anti-therapy. He was like, you have everything in yourself, and he was, reading the Bible, and which I learned also a lot from. I come from a Buddhist atheist background, so my father was following a lot of Buddhism, and my mum was more of an atheist, so a bit of a balance of that. So coming into talking like lessons from the Bible was, I've always, because I think because of that background though, I've always had quite an open mind to to people's beliefs, and to like, well, what can, and I think from seeking so much at that time, I was like I'm open to like help. So I was with this in this next relationship, and that was also, I mean, you could consider that a very toxic relationship also. I don't personally, I don't like labeling.
It's quite an overused phrase.
I don't like I don't like particularly labeling people as toxic. In fact, I wrote a newsletter about that a few weeks.
I've seen,
yeah. But yes, it was a very difficult relationship. And that relationship again broke down about 2-3 years in, again after having a child. And of course, many feelings of, I've done it again, it's all gone wrong again, like oh my god, is this I'm broken, da 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 da. And then I'd moved out again. I moved out many times actually in that relationship. I was also very aware of how people in my environment, although I was always quite I've always been quite outgoing, quite happy, quite bubbly person, like, so on the outside, like I would go to parties and I'd see people and I'd be like like this, but I was becoming aware of how the conversation that I was bringing it along with that even was often like, I mean, we say how are you, don't we, like how are you?
And
and it was it was like, oh, like, yeah, well, this is happening and he's doing this and it's not good. And like the drama and the victimhood and all of that story was just what I was starting to become aware of, how that was being brought into like all of my conversations. Wow. And a bit like, oh my God, I must be boring people by now. And then one day, and I've written about this also at some point. I was at a party and I said to somebody, oh yeah, we've split up, you know, and she was like, oh, again, like you're always splitting up, you know. And I was like, and that really hit me. I was like, oh my God, like am I always complaining about my relationship status? Like, is that what it must be what people are seeing? And anyway, so still I didn't feel like there was any solution, because I tried all of this stuff, right? And then,
and you had been in like plant medicine ceremonies and as well, no? Like, and it didn't seem to make such a dramatic shift.
It would make an amazing shift for like 3 weeks. It would make an amazing, you know, there was a lot of relaxation and a lot of like and other psychedelics as well. So I'd like, oh wow, yeah, life is amazing, and like I can see my dad in everything, you know. I have a lot of spirituality, like all of that connection was there, but then it was in the personal relationships and in this anger and in the like, and I don't like, I always talk about how, you know, our trauma is mixed with our personality and with our upbringing and our childhood. It's not like the trauma is the only thing. It's all mixed in. So and that's what I find so interesting about working with people, with women, like, because every story is different, and every you know, it's like a so puzzle to unravel, and it's beautiful. So where was I? So then I'd given up. That was again. And then,
and you were in like your late 20s at this time, no? More or less.
No, by this time I was about 33. Yeah. So this was 2016. 2016. Okay. So spring of 2016. Some people had moved to the area. I had actually been in contact with them through my herbal medicine practice, which I didn't mention, that I've been
you were doing this at like a lot.
I've been practicing as a medical herbalist, seeing people in consultation for the whole time since my daughter was born. She was actually born in 2006. She was born 3 weeks after my last exam in my university degree and 3 weeks before my graduation ceremony. So if you go down my if you go down on my Instagram, you can see a picture of me graduating from my degree with
holding her nose.
Holding her, yeah. Yeah. So all of this time I've been practicing as a medical herbalist and seeing clients, and, you know, of course, like learning a lot through that and healing myself a lot through that as well, more on a physical level. And so I'd met these people through my herbal medicine practice, and then suddenly, spring of 2016, they were like, we're running this retreat. It's this method called The Journey, and would you like to come along and experience it? And, you know, of course I wanted to. It's another thing to try. And so it was a 3-day event in which you learn the method, you learn and you practice with other people who are also that have also just learned. And so I did that again, felt great afterwards, you know, had connection with people. It was felt really positive, and then, you know, had no expectation of a lot changing because nothing had changed before.
Yeah.
And then I know this is becoming quite a long story.
It's fine. I'm in it.
So then it was the autumn. Yeah. So I'd been, yeah, it was autumn, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to do another event. We're going to run it again. Would you like to come and help? Because once you've done an event, then you can become a trainer, which means that you just supervise other
Yeah.
people and just help out because you know the process a bit." And so
Okay.
in that moment, they came to put a poster up in my clinic, and in that moment, I was like, hey, wait, hang on a minute, like. And I remember the feeling of like, it was weird, but I remember the feeling of like turning around and looking at the previous like 4 months it had been since the retreat. And I hadn't really thought about it, and then I was like, hang on a minute, like it had been my father's death anniversary, which had previously always caused a lot of like drama, poor me, victimhood, self-pity, like all of those feelings would come up. And it had been that I had arguments with my ex, well, becoming ex at the time, both of them, and I was like, I haven't been doing my usual reaction. Like I haven't been throwing myself on the floor and hitting the wall and throwing things around, like, and I haven't actually had an argument with my mom, like. And so it was in that moment that I just sort of like turned, and I was like, yeah, I'm coming to be a trainer for sure. I want to do this. And then that quickly, very, very quickly led on to, well, them saying we should, you know, you like, would you like to continue and do the next training and the next level, and we, you know, we think that it would be a great thing for you to add to your practice as a herbalist, to add the journey work. So it was all very quick after that. I think that December I then went to Israel to do the no ego retreat, which is where you learn all of the bit about you know, personality blueprints, and how how we each have our personality can range, the health of our personality can range from being in the most degenerated state to the most amazing state, and so we can feel really connected and really open and really at home and comfortable with who we are, or we can feel the other way and therefore have all of the, you know, the reactions that we can have that are born out of our personality. So so then I went to that, and then it continues on from there. And interestingly, it actually took me quite more years than it would normally take to become a practitioner in the journey, because of other stuff that happened along the way, which maybe we talk about more sometime. But just let you talk a bit.
What a journey.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I have like a bunch of questions. I mean, we should definitely start by speaking about what actually is the process of the journey, no, and why you feel like it helped you so much. And just in addition to that, like this, I'm really like wanting to speak to you about like the release of trauma through the body. And just wanting to hear your perspective on kind of like what was going on for you while you were going through these processes, while you were having these reactions of like throwing yourself on the floor, like the physical body, like doing such an extreme action and banging your head against the wall. Just your perspective on like now with all of the knowledge that you have now of yourself and of these processes, what you feel was going on within you and why your body was acting in that way. Like, was it just a desire to release energy, or
well, what what I believe it is that I had from just normal upbringing. So I'm the first of three. I've got an older sister from my dad's side, and I'm the eldest of three. So I had a sister born when I was 2.5. I was quite a feisty sort of young thing. And I through no fault of anyone else, I just developed the belief that I was not good, right? So like not good, I'm bad, I'm not good enough. And then of course that got compounded by, you know, I'm not good enough for my dad to stick around for, you know.
Well,
so that was like what I really came to understand. That's what I really came to understand through a lot of the counseling, really. So although it didn't change you know, my behavior, I was more, I understood it more. And I think this is where a lot of people are at, right? Especially now with the amazing world of social media, and like, you know, you can follow many different accounts, Instagram, Facebook. You can find out a lot of information about why you are the way you are, right?
Like from a logical perspective, no?
Exactly, from the brain. Exactly. We just generally don't come across the method to actually make the change. And again, like the other thing that's important to say here is that it's not just the method, because there's many different healing modalities that work in a similar way to the journey, and there's many journey practitioners in the world, and there's it's not just about the modality, it's about how safe you feel and whether you feel held, and whether the person that's helping you is really there. What was the question? Oh yeah, so I believe that the reason that I was throwing myself on the floor and hitting and it was all coming back to this limiting belief of I'm not good enough and I'm bad. So it's all confirming. So it's like, I'm not good enough for you to want to be in relationship with, or I'm not good enough for you to communicate with, or I'm not good enough for you to get out of bed in the morning. You know, I had different flavors of relationship. No, so sometimes my partner would be like smoking a lot and not getting out of bed in the morning and not being there for the kids, and sometimes they would be not being there again because they were working too much. So and of course there again you can see they're not there, they're not available for me, I'm abandoned. You know, I've been abandoned, so therefore I'm playing out in my life,
just playing the story.
The story. I'm playing out the story of I've been abandoned. I'm playing out the story of I'm bad. And then if I throw myself on the floor, then there you go, I am bad. So it's just like this vicious, it's a vicious cycle, right? And I talk a lot about this with people, you know, when at the beginning of the program that I run, Return to Radiance, we talk a lot about this, like trying to hop yourself onto a virtuous cycle and go up those emotions, you know, up into those higher vibration feelings, rather than staying down on this vicious cycle going downwards. So, and of course that is not it's not a smooth spiral. So we can go up and down along it, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, I think that what basically what we were saying before, you know, we can have a lot of ideas and knowledge in our mind of why we are the way we are, but the journey brings is that like connection to that what's actually being held in your body. So the connection to you can, like, the cell memories, you can call them, the experiences that your body has remembered. So
Yeah.
and it might be useful. I don't know if you have questions about that, because I find it hard to remember how it was for me to not know about this.
In terms of the journey work?
Yeah, or in terms of holding memory. So I mean, I can explain a little bit more about the journey work if you want.
Sure.
How it works.
Yeah. I think it would be good just to speak about that briefly, so we have like an idea of like that the process that really helped you. And I think it's really, really good, like you said, it's not about the particular method, no, like it's about feeling that the person that's holding space for you is in resonance with you, and also that you're ready for that particular person, and that person's ready for you. No, and it could be anything. It could be like a particular practitioner, a particular method, a particular counselor, a particular plant medicine. Like it's all about, I mean, like you've said, you went on such a long-winded journey of which eventually led you to finding the practice that was in resonance with you. And I think that's really, really important to note, that sometimes it can just take time to find like the particular healing modality for you at the right time. So what was the journey work? Is it largely about like releasing trauma through the body?
I just want to touch on what you've just said about the time, because I think that it can take it's for sure, like it can take time to find what resonates with you. And we say a lot, you hear a lot, time is a healer. But what I like to remind people of is, or what I've come to understand also, is that like it depends on what you do in that time. Because I've met many women who are in their like 60s and 70s who are like, I've done this work with them, and they're like, oh, I wish I'd done this like 30 years ago. So part of my message is like, really like try and do this in your I think your 30s are a great time to
as young as possible.
Like before you reach menopause, really, because if you don't do it before you reach menopause, I've worked with many menopausal women as a herbalist. It's a like the biggest thing that you work with a lot of the time as a herbalist. Like it's all going to come up then if you don't work on it before then, because it's like that time of like, well, what do I want in life? And all of the stuff and all the emotional stuff can really be seen and really be met at that time. So I mean, it's great if you're doing it at that time. It's also absolutely fine.
So really I imagine it's also a really powerful time, because it's like obviously all of the hormones going crazy, but and for various reasons, but one main reason that I can just think of is this time of like whether it's like consciously reflected on or not. I feel like the being is recognizing like, wow, I can't have any more babies now, or like you're going through that transition of like, it's not an option anymore to not have more children. And I think that's such a big thing, like in the psyche.
And then there's lots of questions that come up with that, like who am I, and what am I doing, and what's my purpose, and like as you say, it's subconsciously. And of course, like neither of us have been through this transition, right? But just want to
who knows what it's gonna be. We can only reflect.
But like I have had that experience with a lot of people, and when women are going through the menopause, your hormones are your adrenal glands are taking over from the function of your ovaries to help to produce the estrogen that you still need in your body. So therefore, if you've had a life with a lot of stress up to that point, then it can make the menopause more difficult, and it can, like, of course, in like some women will just be like, no, I'm not looking at any of that stuff, and I'm just going to carry on over here and work through it, or do whatever coping mechanism to get through it, and then and not look at it. And that's why I was saying that, like, these women that I've worked with who are like, oh wow, I really wish I'd done this a bit earlier in life. So just encouraging that to happen.
Sure, as early as possible, in my opinion. Like
yeah, and also just I mean, as early as possible, and also keeping in mind that our brains and, you know, all of the centers in our brains don't fully develop till we're 25. So I think that mid-20s is an amazing time to start. It's interesting that also this was such a me, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I
think it really happens at this time. Like I've listened to I've seen this in my everyday life. I've seen this in myself, and I've listened to various like women speak about this. That often the work is starting like around the mid-20s. For me, it was like slightly earlier, around 21, 22. But yeah, somehow I feel like the mid, because you're kind of like coming out of that like adolescence phase, and you know, a lot of the time coming out of maybe a degree or something, and just it seems to be like a really powerful time, and also like a really powerful time for reproduction, for having children, like all kinds of like things occurring at that time. So the journey work, so it's really it's largely focused on releasing trauma through the body.
So what I like to sort of like, I see we see many different modalities, no, like, oh, you need to work on your beliefs, and you need to work on your you need to journal on this, on any promises you've made to yourself, and you need to do gratitude practice, and you need to heal your inner child, and you need to, you know, all of these different things, right? You need to. Well, this is the way, right? So that when I think about the journey, I'm like, well, you know, it's like it's a package. It does all of those things, right? Like,
nice.
Which is why I think it's so wonderful, because you go into you get guided into the body, and there's a couple of different ways that we do that. So depending on whether somebody's got a more physical issue, or whether it's more of an emotional issue, so we can work with both of those things. So you're guided inside, and you are encouraged to gently, so it's very gentle at the beginning. I think this is a really important thing, when, especially when there's a history of trauma, that you feel safe at the beginning. You are encouraged to relax, and sometimes that is not easy, you know, when there is when body's been in fight or flight, or even gone into a disconnected place. It's not easy. Like, some people can't sit still, and that's absolutely fine. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, well, I wouldn't be able to do that because I can't sit still,
I think it's more common like than what we think.
Some of the work that needs to be done prior, maybe, or maybe you go into it more gently, or you do shorter sessions. So there's that. This is what I was saying about being met by somebody, you know, being met by a practitioner or a friend or whoever's doing the work with you, is meeting you where you are, and not where they think you should be, or just going by rote into, you know. So so it's a process where you get guided inside, and then you are encouraged to do, like, we do a process to work through whatever feelings are coming up, and like, because normally the feelings bubble up, and then the chemistry of an emotion lasts for like a minute or 2 minutes. I don't know if you've like, maybe it's more common knowledge these days, but so the chemistry of an emotion only lasts for this short amount of time. So if you're held and in this space, and being witnessed, and being encouraged to not, like, we encourage to not attach too much story. So story comes up and memory comes up as you're feeling down through the feelings, but there's not like, that's not where you're focusing at that point in the process. So we're like allowing your body to basically start to go, oh my God, what's shit, like, they're finally listening. Like, and it's funny because, you know, a lot of the time, you know, I come across a lot of people who are like, yeah, well, I've been feeling my emotions for a long time. You're like, and I had been feeling my emotions a lot as well. Like, I mean, I would cry, like I'd go into that place, I'd hit my head against the wall, I'd be really angry, and then I'd like cry, like my dad died.
Yeah.
But that's where that part that is expressing all of that emotion is a little bit further into the process, so where you're meeting that inner child, right? So so what happens normally when you drop through the feelings is that at some point you arrive at like a place where you feel like peaceful and calm. And so it's not a like obligatory part of the process, but it is really useful. And when you've done like multiple processes, it tends to be a state that comes more naturally, and then we call it's source. So it's like source energy, which of course people have completely different words for in their own experience. So it might be a place like where they feel like it feels like light, it feels like peace, it feels like love, it feels like God, like whatever it is in the person's language. And it's also that it's important also to say that throughout that process of connecting with the feelings, it's like you're not told, like, you know, like, so you could be there with your eyes closed, and I could be looking at you, and like, and you're going like like this or something, and like, or you're starting to tear up or something, and you know, if I was going to do it really badly, and like it's possible that it happens, you know, I could be like, so now you're feeling anger, and now you're sad, you know. So it's not it's like this is not the way that it works well. So it takes time, you know, and I think that it takes a lot of like when you're holding that space, it takes a lot of patience, because like, you know, I can't tell you to feel something before you're feeling it, you know, and I can't tell you to feel it. Like, I mean, I can encourage you in ways, but I can't like make you do anything, you know, like that wouldn't be correct. So then this place where you get to where so this connection to source is part of the what I see it as part of the long-term healing. So for example, like for myself now, like if anything difficult is happening in my life, you know, because healing doesn't mean that your life just becomes like perfect.
It's never difficult ever again.
But if anything is a challenge, or like I feel it like here, like I feel like there's always this place where I can like just feel like it's like a support, you know, it's like a place where I feel like connected. And I think this is where that's where we come to when we use psychedelics, or we do an ayahuasca ceremony, or we do meditation. Like we are connecting to that source energy. We're connecting to that place where everything feels all right, regardless of past, future, like all of that. So like with time, with like multiple processes, you get to sense into that feeling more, and make it part of your everyday experience. So yeah, that's another aspect. And then so after all of that, there's you get the opportunity to access your whatever child has come up through that drop down process. We call it a drop through. You get to have like the conversations that need to be had from from that younger version of yourself, and from the present version of yourself, with whoever it is that there's any unresolved stuff. So like like for me, this was just like, what, like this is amazing. Like, you know, like I never thought I'd be able to talk to my dad again.
Yes, because you really can, like, and energetically it's so real, like for some people maybe listening to this, it's
it just magically changes things as well with people, you know, with people that are still around. It's not just people that have passed. It's like, you know, like my relationship with my mum, I think I've had one time when can remember one time since this whole thing. So one time since 2016 that I've had that same previous reaction with my mom. And it was interesting because I remember her saying, "You're reacting to me. You're," like the same stuff that used to be the, you know, the words in that conversation.
The defense.
And I just turned to her in that moment and I went, "Yeah, but this hasn't." I think it was about a year or a year and a half afterwards. I was like, "But Mum, look, this hasn't happened." This hasn't happened for like a year or like. And then she was like, "Oh yeah, okay, right, yeah." So amazing.
We could get so used to people's reactions, no, and then
absolutely,
yeah.
I mean, we get used to we get used to people and their habits and the way they like things as well, you know. I remember going back to my grandmother's house and her always having the same food in the fridge for me. Like she would always buy me pita breads and hummus and salad, and then one year I went back there and I wasn't eating wheat, and I was like, "Oh,
wow." Yeah. I literally have had the same experience with my nan, bless her. She used to always make like salmon and cucumber sandwiches, and I used to love them. But then I got to the place where I wasn't eating gluten anymore, and I felt really bad. Like,
So that's another thing, you know, that I'm always talking to with people that are in this, you know, that are changing, that are growing and changing their reactions and being able to suddenly respond rather than react, right? Is that like you need to be patient with the other people in your life, you know, because they're still going to be responding to you in the way that you have been previously. And at the same time, like I was just saying, those relationships, they just like magically change. And you know, so you previously you might be like, oh, you know, like whatever the relationship is, oh, they're toxic, like we were talking about before, they're da, 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 da. And then you change, and then like and then it's like there isn't even anything. It's like there isn't that, the relationship's different, so therefore it's not possible to have that conflict anymore. It's really amazing.
It's so powerful. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. I remember witnessing this within myself. Like once you know, it's so empowering as well. Like once you change the energy within yourself, and you can just sit back and witness how the energy in your relationships change, and also sometimes that means the types of connections that you're forming also change. You know, sometimes that means relationships end, or friendships end, or take a break, or there's more space from different people, and it's such an empowering and incredible process to witness, no, just to kind of to watch, and also to witness within yourself the types of people that end up then energetically circling towards you. And the more like clean you feel and true you feel and heart-centered you feel and free like you feel within yourself, similar people with similar resonances come towards you.
I was saying before about the abandonment, the wounds, you know, like what the wounds that we're attracting stuff to reflect on all the time.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I cut you off.
Absolutely. Like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Just, this could be like a whole podcast in itself, no, relationships and how strong the mirror is, and how like if you're not happy within a relationship, or if the finger is being pointed out so much, which I've done very much in my past relationships, you know, blaming and blaming and blaming and blaming. And the reality is like, it's within your hands. Like it doesn't mean that the person is, you know, maybe the person is actually acting in ways that are untrue or ways that are harming you. But at any point, like if at any point you can choose to leave, but often we stay because of that trauma, because of that trauma bond and that wound. Because I was wanting to say before when you were speaking, like how sometimes how difficult it is to make change, because the discomfort becomes so comfortable, like it becomes so normal, like it becomes almost like I witness it in myself all the time still, like when when I'm on the edge of new growth, or when a new lesson is about to come, the old part of me wants to stay there, but even if it's like sad or angry or anxious or fearful, it's a state that is safe in a way. Like, and so it can make it a bit difficult sometimes to know, like, yeah, it's familiar, and like happiness and freedom and peace is often, I think, much more often than what people realize. Like, it's really uncomfortable to be in that state for a lot of people, I think, and I've seen myself in this as well, and still do to a certain extent. Like, I was having a conversation recently with a friend about like like feeling, periods of my life now where I feel like a sense of just ease and joy. And then I automatically notice my mind, like, once it recognizes I'm in a state of ease and joy, like automatically be like, whoa, where's the like there's a problem and I'm not seeing it. Like, and so my mind, like, obsessively searches for a problem to work on, because that's what I had become used to.
Yeah. This is why I recently trained as a life coach, because in life coaching we look forwards rather than looking back all the time. Like, so if in the mind wants something to work on, so the mind wants something to create. And so if our mind is always looking at the past and at what's happened to me and all of then there's then you're going to create in your life places for it to see that again. I mean, I think that with what I noticed with the journey, that did really shift. But a lot of the time, like, we do need to be looking forwards as well, and that's what I was talking to you about recently, about the like the timeline of healing, and like wanting to just want, like, for people to know that it's like we don't have to be on like a healing our past journey forever. Like the really traumatic things and all of this sort of stuff, like, we don't have to be continuously bringing it up and focusing there. It's really important to focus there, but it doesn't have to be forever. And of course, like I said before, we're always going to have our personality, and we're going to be triggered, and we're going to have all of this stuff happening, and we're going to be in relationship, hopefully, because that's, that's where we grow in relationship. But I wanted to say about, before you mentioned about being like in relationship with leaving, not leaving, like, I feel like I could be in relationship with my partners from the past, like, in the state that I am now. Like, I would be much more accepting of who they are. I would be much more curious about what's going on for them, and I feel like I have the capacity to hold space for that now, whereas before I just didn't have no capacity. So what one thing that and like you say, we could talk about relationships for a whole episode, but
maybe we will.
one thing that is really, really useful, I find, is to like really use mirroring. Like, so when you're I use it a lot myself in my relationship now. If I'm annoyed about something that my husband's doing, or if I'm like not feeling seen by him, or not feeling, like, we're both very busy, and what I've been doing, it just came to me one night. I was like, like, I really need something that I'm not getting from you. And then I just sat there on the sofa and I went, I really need something that I'm not getting from you, Sophie. And it just like broke everything down. Like, so just changing round, like turning it around onto yourself. And that's not to say, you know,
Yeah.
like self-sabotage and it's always me and all of that. It's because it's not always you. But
Yeah.
it's just a really useful exercise. Like, wow, okay, like turning it
Yeah.
around. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And empowering. Like it puts the ability to change the situation in your own
Absolutely.
hands. Like, yeah. So how long, like more or less in the journey work, like, how long is the process?
A journey process. How long does it
Yeah,
take in
or
time?
is it like a continual? Yeah, I mean, is it just to understand, like, is it a continual work with the kind of like the same mentor for a while, like, or is it different for everyone?
Do you mean mentor as in like a therapist mentor, or
Yeah,
yeah?
like a
Because I
like
didn't
a
talk
journey
about.
work practitioner.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I asked because within the journey process, you welcome a mentor for yourself, which is why I was
Okay.
clarifying that. So when you
Okay.
do the
Yeah.
conversational part, what I was talking about before, where
Hmm.
you get access to the younger versions of yourself and you have these conversations, um, yeah, we can work there on beliefs and on cutting cords and on promises you've made for yourself and on like clearing and changing memories, which can be really really helpful if when we're dealing with something that's like a flashback, like, or some recurring thing that's been happening, or
Yeah.
yeah, I won't make any examples at this stage, but
Mm.
basically there's lots of different stuff that can be done in that part. And then
Hmm.
after that we come out. So I always like to describe, because it's scary, right? Like, oh, I'm going to look inside and I don't know, and I'm scared of what I
Yeah.
might find there, and there's this thing that I've had like in the closet for like 10 years, and I know that it's affecting the way that I behave, but it's
Yeah.
scary to look at it, right? um
Hmm.
so what I always like to describe is that, like, we're going to go in gently, we're going to start gently, we're going to go into the process slowly, and you know, we can go at your pace, and then it tends to go deep, right? It doesn't always go deep the first time, it depends,
Yeah.
but it tends to go deep, and it goes to this place where there's all these stuff happens and all this amazing magical change, because really I can't explain it.
Mm.
And then we come out the other side, right? So we don't leave you in that place where you're like, oh, like that relationship was really hard, and like
Yeah.
we don't stay there. We come
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
and we come to this place of feeling like, oh, okay, like peace is here, and like a bit back to that connection, that source connection.
Hmm.
So a whole process takes. I normally leave. I normally say it takes 2 hours, but I leave 2.5 hours. I actually
Okay.
tend to
So
leave
it's,
three
yeah.
hours in my schedule, yeah, because
Yeah.
it's, yeah,
Yeah.
it needs, and that doesn't mean to say that, you know, say if you're a person that is like, oh, I could never do that long, it's not possible in my schedule. Of course it can be adapted, and it's like, so I do work with some people have like a 1 hour session each week, and
Yeah.
then, but yeah, it really depends on what's coming up for you, and whether um like whether we decide whether you want to go do a like more coaching and like looking forward in your life and then dealing with the blockages that come up along the way with the journey work, or whether there's
With the
like,
journey work. Yeah.
whether there's sort of trauma that is like, okay, we really need to address that before we can start really looking forwards even. And
Yeah.
that always becomes clear in um like in a first meeting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was gonna be my next question. Like, is it yeah, like you said, some people do this like once a week, like 1 hour every week. So it's not the expectation that you do like one journey, you know, for 2 or 3 hours
Mm.
and then you're solved. Is it quite frequently that is it quite yeah, quite common that people kind of go back to this process whenever a blockage comes up, or?
I mean, it becomes a way of life, really, because like now
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got stuff coming up with, well, my daughter's just moved out, and
Mm-hmm.
she's 17, and she's, you know, there's
Mm-hmm.
just been some things, like there's some things emotionally for me that I'm like, wow, I could really do with the process. So it you know, can become this way of like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll just use it like that. But what and yeah, of course, like I said, everybody's different. But what I normally suggest is that we do like 2 sessions a month for
Mm.
anything between 3 and 6 months, to start with. Like
Yeah.
it's good to get into it like that. And I mean, I work with it alongside the herbal medicine and alongside the other um, methods for, we call it elicitation,
Yeah.
so like bringing stuff up, so like workbooks
Yeah.
and questions and journaling and stuff to help you to
Yeah.
like, okay, what do I really need to work through? So
Mm-hmm.
so then that brings stuff up, and then you to the process, to the sessions, you bring whatever's presenting. And normally also we
Yeah.
meet as a group once a week, so there's an opportunity for
Mm.
anyone actually who would like to meet in a group setting, to
Yeah.
just experience a little bit of, we do a little bit of the drop through process in there, so you get a bit of a taste for
Mm-hmm.
it. But
Wow,
yeah,
so nice.
you can, of course, you can have like 1, 2, 3 sessions and get a lot from it. It's just that
Mm.
sometimes, like, I like to make people aware that sometimes, like, you'll do a session and then it will uncover the other deeper layers that you're like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
really need to,
Sure.
because, you know, we have a mum and a dad, whatever your relationship with
Mm-hmm.
your mum and your dad is, like, normally they need some sort of conversation to happen around them,
Sure.
some sort of healing
Yeah.
to happen. And then there's,
Yeah.
you know, we've lived a life, so, or half a
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
or a bit of a life.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots of
Wow.
points.
It's uh-huh. And it's so crazy. Like everything that you're describing now is like it's it's partially why I felt so inspired to have this conversation with you, because I feel like this kind of work is so um it's so needed. Like
Mm.
when I was like around 21 or 22 and started, you know, kind of reached a point where I was like, okay, like I can't avoid this anymore. No, like it's, I need to look, like I need to turn around and look. And this kind of work, like at the time I had seen, you know, a couple of different therapists. At the time I was seeing it like a Freudian um, therapist. And this kind of stuff started coming up, and I just suddenly wasn't in resonance with that therapist anymore. And also, you know, decided to turn like mushrooms just magically appeared in my life, and so I decided to kind of go down that path. And the rest is history. But yeah, like this, it kind of opened me to like, wow, I need to, you know, because you can't just take a bunch of mushrooms and then everything's fine. Like you need to actually, you know, kind of come back
Integrate.
and reevaluate, like you were saying with the with your work with ayahuasca. Like, you know, everything was great for a few weeks afterwards, and then you go back, and yeah, this is also a very big conversation to open about work with plant medicines and what it actually does versus what people's
Mm.
expectations are. And
Mm.
but yeah, this kind of work I started just doing with myself, like by some gift of God, like had the feeling to go in and start having conversations with my inner child and with, you know, bullies from school, or like, you know, parents, like et cetera, all the people that I need to clear things with. But I didn't have anyone guiding me. It was really just you know, microdosing some mushrooms, and then most of the time not with anything, just in meditation, but feeling like, wow, these conversations need to be had. These, and I was having, like, I remember the first big release that I had um about a week after taking mushrooms for the first time. And like it was, you know, journeying back within myself to this really traumatic memory, in which was, you know, really traumatic at the time for me, in primary school. and having like an unbelievable release, just like crying as hard as I had cried in like years and years and years and years. It was so profound. But I'm just reflecting back and feeling like, if we can get this work more known and have people guiding, because I was doing it by myself, and if I had have had a practitioner like guiding me through that, perhaps it would have been a bit smoother, like it was good, like what I was doing, and I've arrived, and now I have since like worked with certain like guides and mentors and things like this. But for a couple of years, like really I was by myself. I felt like, I mean, sure, if I had have actually reached out and searched for it, then something might have come. Perhaps it was just like part of my journey to be by myself during that period. But I feel like it's not, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's this stuff hasn't yet fully come into the mainstream yet. No, it's like really, at least my perspective of the mainstream therapeutic system, which really, it didn't give me much help. Even though like I do think there is a good like place for cognitive behavioral therapy and things like this. Like I'm not, I do think it can be helpful, but somehow, yeah. What's your perspective on that? Like, the work that you're doing in comparison to more like mainstream work, we could call it, in the therapeutic field.
Well, I just really think, like I mentioned before, that it really depends on the person that's doing the work, and then of course their training, but also that, I think that it's few and far between, for sure. The amount of access that people have to this sort of work, definitely. I'm in many groups where people are going, oh, my therapist did this and that, like things that you just wouldn't, you're just like, no, that's like completely not okay. And these are regulated practitioners. They're people that are underneath professional bodies, and like it's. But I've also met like somebody who I've been working with for the past year or so. She's had like a dissociative identity disorder, and she had come across many. She'd been in therapy for like a long, like 15 years or something when I met her, and she had come across, luckily she'd come across some good practitioners. Like she had come across like one, but then that's like one of many practitioners. She had also come across practitioners that had been encouraging her to do the exact opposite to what we've done together. So when this other personality comes up, ignore it. Tell it that you want it to go away. Tell it that you don't want it to be around. And like when I heard that, I was like, okay, well, I think we're going to do something a bit different. I think that I think there are certain as far as I'm aware, like there's things like internal family systems, and EMDR therapy and somatic experiencing. I think that those things are the things that seem, I haven't experienced those, but they seem, when people talk about them, they seem to be the things that are most closely like similar to the journey work. I have worked with people that have done those therapies as well. And the feedback that I've had from the people that I've worked with is that the journey just seems to go to a bit of a deeper place. I'm also not sure, of course, like that can also depend on many things, how ready somebody is, how comfortable they feel with the practitioner, how, like, many different things. So it's I mean, I've also worked with people who've gone on a retreat for, like, on a retreat with doctors and like a special center, and been taken through, what do they call it, like exposure therapy. So this is where they bring up the memories, they talk about the memories, they talk about what happened, and they talk about it again and again until they feel okay about it. But it's also it's also, as far as I can see, that's very much from up here. It's from the frontal cortex,
exactly.
from the conscious part of our mind. So not accessing. That's what these other modalities do. The journey and possibly other things that I mentioned, is that we're accessing those subconscious things. We're allowing the subconscious to throw up the things that have been driving our behavior and causing the suffering that we experience.
I see this as well, that it's like working at different levels. And like I said, I think there's a place for working at the level of the mind and working in therapies such as CBT and things like this. But somehow I have experienced within myself, and I've seen around me, that getting to the release of the trauma through the body, and the realization of because the unconscious is it's an ocean, or it's an abyss. It doesn't stop. It's so it's so complex. And the getting to the roots, and this is also what plant medicine does, and what your work is doing. So
so what that makes me think of, on a memory basis, because that is what is a thing that comes up quite a lot when I've explained the process, and we talk about going back to certain memories. People are like, well, I've got like hundreds of memories. I've experienced like many moments of when I felt abused as a child, or like how am I possibly ever gonna heal all of that? It's something that comes up quite a lot, and what we can do is we can take the feeling, and we can like rewind the time, and we get you to see all of the images that are related to that feeling, and therefore, like it's like a healing rolled into one. Like it's like, I see it like scooping up all of those experiences, and then like clearing them all out at the same time. It's very hard to put it into words, but but in order to do that, we would take, like, again, come back to that source place, and like it's almost like you bathe all of the memories in that experience. And so it's really beautiful. But it sort of answers that question of like, there's so many memories in there, like, which is I just thought of it because you mentioned the abyss of the subconscious mind. And remembering also, like, just to give a little bit of hope on that subject, that your subconscious mind is responding to your conscious mind as well. So like your conscious mind is like setting the like your thoughts and the thing, the things that we can control and that we can navigate, and like it's part of the process. It's not like, oh, let's just get rid of the conscious mind and like only work with the subconscious. It's like all mixed together, and it can be it's really helpful, and it's another thing that I like to make sure that there are tools to use, like in the moment life hacks, like coping strategies that are healthy, that you can use in your everyday life, because you're not going to be continuously in a journey process. You're not always going to be going into this deep place, and you don't always want to be going into that deep place. You want to be able to function in your life. So like, like anxiety hacks, like bilateral stimulation, things that can help you to like feel okay in the moment, shaking, like all, these practices that can really help us to like ground and connect with the body and be like, okay, I can walk out of my door today and be in the world. And so like, there's loads of fascinating things, like nervous system, polyvagal theory talks about this a lot, like moving through your nervous system states. And so I like to have all of that integrated into this, into this work, so that people can really be met in where they are, not just like you have to just connect to source and then everything's fine. It's not like that.
Sure. Yeah, no, you need to have so many tools in your toolbox. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have so many tools in your toolbox as a practitioner. And yeah, so thank you for the work that you're doing. Before we finish, can you share like where people can find you and like what kind of work you're offering at the moment?
Yeah, thank you. So you can find me on my website, which is my name, Sophie Paulding Kopecky. I think it's on the screen.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. My Instagram is Return to Radiance, and I also have a free Facebook group for women who want to do this sort of work and want to get out of like feeling like they've got like emotional overwhelm outbursts, this sort of thing. And just create that life of health and full health. And, you know, in there, I like to talk about like all of the different aspects of what can affect our mental health positively. So not just the inner work, which is obviously a big, important part of the process, but also like detox and food and movement and like all of the things that can help to lift us up. And so I share in there, and you can join that group if you want. I also send out a newsletter once a week. All of that is on my website, myname.com, Sophie Paulding Kopecky.
Yeah.
And
I'll link all of that as well.
So at the moment, I'm offering one-to-one work on a monthly basis. But what I will say is that if you're interested in this work at all, I offer as the beginning of it is a free session. So, and that helps you to get like a bit more clarity on like the bigger picture. So we'll normally go into, it depends on where you're at, because sometimes the bigger picture is like, oh, I can't see a bigger picture. It depends on what sort of picture you can see, but that's where we go to, and to see what needs to actually happen to get you to that place of where you want to go.
Wow, nice. Well, I think we're going to be doing another episode at some point, so so we can delve into all of the other things that we didn't delve into in detail today, including your work with herbs and various other topics like relationships and things like this.
Yeah, relationships, grief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to come back. Thank you, Emma. It's super nice
Thank you.
to chat with you. Yeah.